Good morning, everyone. I'd like to get the meeting underway if we could, please. Good morning. My name is Ian Morrison, and I will be chairing this special meeting of the Electoral Area Services Committee of Wednesday, April the 16th. I'd like to welcome all of you in the gallery and watching us online. I'd like to note that Director Martman will be joining us remotely, and I'd ask Director Martman, even though you're right in front of me on the big screen here, to make sure that you wave frantically and put your virtual hand up if you're inclined to want to speak. I'd like to begin by asking everyone in the room to please silence your electronic devices if you have them, put them on vibrate or turn them off or silent. And I would like to begin by recognizing that the CVRD is on the unceded territories of the Cowichan, Malahat, Subasat, Halalt, Penelakut, Staminas, Layaxan, Pakwachin, DT Dot, and Pachi Dot nations, whose people have walked gently here for thousands of years. And just before we go to approval of the agenda, it's noted, and I'd already said, that we have a special meeting today. We have one topic of discussion. And I just wanted to share that, I take the responsibilities of the chair very seriously, and a chair is supposed to bring the best of meeting procedures to the table each day, and that's impartiality, fairness, encouraging people to be heard, and to try and oversee and preside over a transparent process. And at the same time, we want to do our best to ensure that we're representing the goals and needs and aspirations of the people that sent us here in the first place. So today, I think, is one of those special days in which I'm very passionate about the topic that we will be discussing today, but recognizing that all the voices around this table and the members of the community are important and need to be heard. So I will endeavor to do my best traffic cop impersonation, and would ask all of you to participate as much or as little as you wish, and to let's see that the community is seeing the work of their community being done here today. So with that, I will turn to Ms. Boyd. We have approval of the agenda, correct? Do we have any additions or changes or supplemental information?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to note that electoral area directors have received a few items of correspondence this morning regarding R1 today. I note that Ms. Barnard's came in before noon yesterday, which can be included on the agenda package for public input period, but she is also in the gallery here today to speak to it. All correspondence received for R1 will be included in the board information package to ensure all directors receive the equal amount of information. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, approval of the agenda moved. Do we have a seconder? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed, the motion carries. On to the public input period. And the public input period is to offer the public an opportunity to comment on the agenda item before committee considers the item. The public input period procedure policy allows for an allotment of 15 minutes where the speaker is welcome to comment on the agenda item up to a maximum of 3 minutes. This excludes items that may or have been the subject of a public hearing. The speaker should comment in a polite, calm, and courteous manner using respectful language, civility, and decorum. With that, is the timer ready? The timer is ready. Please state your name. Oh, you have to press the button?
Red button? There you go. Oh.
There you go.
Okay.
3 minutes starts now.
Hi, I'm Pauline Hunt. I'm from Area H, Director Martman's regional district, and I'm here. I sent this out as a letter, but I would like to just read it over again to go on record. As a resident of Area H, I realize all constituents and their APC members have been eliminated from the regional growth strategy decision-making process. That's a major concern. Area H residents want our region to remain a forever agricultural green space. We are especially concerned about our Cassidy Aquifer, our largest freshwater resource, and the probability that it will be exploited as a desirable location in future for urban growth expansion. Area H will be caught between two separate regional districts and their individual regional growth strategies, the CVRD and town of Ladysmith to the south and the RDN to the north. And the RDN has a regional growth strategy for the Cassidy Aquifer and Nanaimo Airport district. So our Cassidy Aquifer sits precariously between these two regional areas and their growth strategies. And our major developments are currently underway for the Cassidy region and the Nanaimo Airport. There's major expansions taking place in the works for that area. So how do we protect the integrity of our Cassidy Aquifer without an official agreement between the RDN and CVRD, which doesn't currently exist? We are concerned that our original OCP document is currently unfinished as well, and it's very unsettling going into a regional growth strategy until all of the area OCPs are completed, along with the modernized OCP version of everything. So that's another concern. So we urge all area directors to carefully consider the ramifications of this regional growth strategy and what it will do to all our individual regions moving forward. How will this affect our communities with higher property taxes, questionable land use decisions, and depletion of already scarce fresh water supplies? How do we accommodate growth without sacrificing the spirit, the ambience, and the natural resources of our beautiful communities?
Can I ask you to wrap up? Your 3 minutes is up.
One more sentence, and I urge everyone here to please encourage information sharing with your constituents and your APC boards, because I think they deserve to be included in the thought process for this whole arrangement. So
Thank you very
anyway,
much.
Haichka. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Miff Plekas, and I live in the Diamond area of Area H on Jones Road, next to the Native College area. My family has been there since the 1800s. My grandfather had a business, oyster business. We were always in the rural area. And then we went to rural residential. Now, with this new growth strategy, I can see we're going to be going into urban. We are on the Diamond water system from the town of Ladysmith. The folks in this area want to be rural, and they do not want to be urban. They want to be able to age in their homes. We are at the north end of the Cowichan Valley Regional District, which is next to the town of Ladysmith. The growth of Ladysmith, with this growth strategy plan, will put us into Ladysmith area. The mayor, when I saw online of North Cowichan, pointed out that North Cowichan and the other municipalities in British Columbia have limited or no money of capital for new infrastructure. The town of Ladysmith, in my opinion, does not have financing for roads alone. They can't even look after the other roads, the older roads. Who's going to pay for this? Of course, we as the taxpayers are going to pay for all of this. We are pinned from the town of Ladysmith, from the CVRD area to the north end where the RDN is. They're going to be doing development and in the Cassidy Aquifer area for around 3,000 houses. Island West Lands, the forest company, will also be developing. Years ago, they were talking about nodes, and nodes are where they have their housing and they also have complete shopping centers, and you just have to go into that little area. You don't have to go into any other area.
Can I ask you to please wrap up? Your 3 minutes are up.
Also, I'm assuming the Native people, where I'm right next to, will also be doing more. They also have a plan where I live. This is going to be a very big growth area from from this area right through to the Cassidy Aquifer. I am really appalled that this is happening because I have lived there for probably 80 years. And I think that the voice of the public has to be taken into consideration. I feel that this is wrong. You need to have more time, and you need to include your people of the areas, that they have time to think about this, because you just get your agenda on the Wednesday, and then, or rather on Friday, and then on Wednesday, you come and you talk about these things, and then you push it right through.
Can I ask you to
Thank
please
you.
conclude? Thank you. I'd like to invite anyone else who would like to come forward to provide input on today's agenda item.
My name is Greg Adams. I've only lived here for 61 years, so I'm just a newcomer. I guess my concern is, having seen an official community plan being implemented in North Cowichan, and then regional growth strategies laying on top of official community plans, I would just hope that the directors would make sure that you use all your resources and take time. There's huge consequences, as the ladies in front of me said. So we have professionals that may have their own agenda that put together these official community plans, and they have their own mindset, and then it's implemented. And what happens is, when these policies are implemented, they are then interpreted by people in this building. And I'm not talking about you guys, I'm talking about staff here. And it can have serious consequences to a family just trying to have, you know, a little sweet for the mom to grow old with them, and on it goes. I can give 100 examples, but the interpretations amongst staff can have major consequences. So I just hope that you use your resources, your area planning committees, the public, you know, lots of input and opportunity, so you can get, you can get the feeling of the whole community, not just a professional that we hire to put together these programs. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Good day. I Squale, Siemna Siea. I'm here to offer some encouragement, but also some feedback, because I was listening to the live stream of last week's meeting, and I heard everything from anxiety and nervousness, almost panic, right up to resistance to this process of a regional strategy. And that concerned me because, in my view, the most important work done at the CVRD table is strategy. You have to know where you're going. And this is why everyone here represents us. And so I offered some feedback by correspondence in Area B that I saw that being a good neighbor to the south of us, we should keep in our eyesight, in our radar, the vicinity of the Souk Lake Reservoir as Victoria's drinking water, and much of the CVRD properties that surround that, they really are concerned about wildfire risk. They're concerned about unregulated recreational use of those lands. My correspondence also referred to development of those lands would certainly factor in, and land use decisions around the Souk Lake Reservoir area, and that'll just keep expanding as the growth projections pinpoint Langford doubling by 2050. But what I'd also, again, want to circle back to is how important this work is, how necessary this work is, and I want to commend the staff. It's an excellent 300-odd page compilation of resources. I was reading about the water and wastewater management. I was reading about the regional collaborative framework, and these are exceptional documents. And I'd also like to reference that when I was a kid growing up in a small town Canada, I was lucky to have the Honorable George Cuff as my small town mayor, and he served 4 terms in a way that gave direction to the Spruce Grove that now I don't even recognize, but it's definitely a thriving community with all of the pieces in place that needed to be there in order for people, even like himself, to still continue to live there. Throughout all the stages of life, family life, everything was covered in that little community that I don't even recognize anymore. And I listened to some of his teaching because he's gone on to be a consultant for training public servants, municipalities, directors such as yourselves, and he too would echo, I feel very confident speaking on his behalf, just saying that this is the most important work that you do, setting a strategy. You've got the wonderful staff here to back you up. They've supplied you with everything you need, and I think it's something so necessary, especially for all of us to be good neighbors, because I think we can agree that we can all be good neighbors if we know where we're going. Thank you. Heitzapka.
Thank you, and now I would like to encourage anyone else that would like to provide input to committee on this item.
I was going to say good afternoon, but good morning.
Good morning, welcome.
It's unusual to be here at this time of day. Susan Kaufman from Satlam. And wow, Kim, that was very well said. And for the ladies here as well. I think it's really important. You know, we're going through our MOC process. I was at the Step 3 APC meeting last night and looking at the documents there and having all the big maps on the board. And walking around and looking at them and seeing the growth and understanding the needs and the concerns that were raised at that meeting about water and sewer and the environment and green spaces. And we and you live within the Cowichan Valley Regional District, and that encompasses our municipal and First Nation neighbors as well. And planning practices tell us that infill is better than sprawl. And I think the staff did an excellent job of providing you with documents that you asked for. I think I listened to the meeting last week. I was not here, but I was really concerned when I heard people say, our people don't want this. Not everybody said that, but some said our people don't want this. And a question I would ask you to ask yourselves is, how do you know? Because we heard today that this has not gone out to the public. There's good things about it. There may be some things that are not so good, but at least we can look at it as a group and keep that open mind and make your decisions based on that. Personally, I do think a regional growth strategy is appropriate and necessary to protect our way of life. And I don't think that we will lose autonomy. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've just looked over at the timer here, and we've technically run out of time, but I noted we've got some other folks in the gallery and would, I guess, poll my colleagues to see if there's anyone, well, firstly, is anyone else wanting to come and provide input? Okay, we're done then. Fantastic. Ms. Boyd, does this take us right on through to reports on R1?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as a special meeting, R1, report from the General Manager, Land Use Services Department regarding the regional growth strategy. This was referred from the board meeting last week of April 9th, 2025.
It's Terrell for you joining us at the lectern.
Thank you, Chair. Directors, good morning. I do have a few notes if you'll indulge me.
Actually, hang on for just a second here. I was conversing with the chair earlier. I'm just wondering, I was going to go round table with the board and have just some general opening comments and remarks. I'm wondering if you would like to hear from Ms. Chirolf in her presentation first, or you would like to, okay, so thank you for that. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So the report recommendations of the April 9th, 2025 Committee of the Whole are attached and were referred to this committee so that electoral area directors could have a dedicated opportunity to focus on the topic and electoral area specific issues prior to further deliberation by the board next week. Just as a reminder, the purpose of a regional growth strategy, which is established under the legislation, is to promote human settlement that's socially, economically, and environmentally healthy and makes efficient use of public facilities and services, land, and other resources. So there are, for the CBRD, three different sort of buckets of precursor studies and activities that I believe are very critical. These include a regional conservation strategy, and this isn't reflected in the draft terms of reference, but could be moving forward. So that's an initiative that would be undertaken by the Environmental Services Group, and that strategy would aim to protect and enhance biodiversity within a specific, within the region, identifying ecosystems and watersheds, and providing a big picture view of the region, providing for stewardship of the natural environment in all decisions. So that's really important to provide that information to develop a regional growth strategy. The second was the development of a regional servicing strategy, and that would aim to ensure efficient and effective delivery of essential services like water, wastewater, and transportation across the region, while promoting, obviously, sustainable development. And that focuses on coordinating infrastructure and services across the municipalities and the jurisdictions to achieve regional goals. And this one was, this is kind of interesting because there was work several years ago in the NOVA report, which is attached to my staff report, to look at electoral area specific services. But there is a need to look more broadly at municipal services, their water and waste systems, and also the improvement districts and the services that those improvement districts are providing across the region. And then the third, importantly, would be to establish early engagement with our local First Nations. So that would require a collaborative, respectful, and culturally sensitive approach, recognizing their rights and rights to self-determination. And so we would look to engage early, incorporate traditional knowledge and perspectives, and ensure transparency through the process. And I think this would really help to foster collaborative relationship with our local First Nations and reconciliation efforts. So there was some discussion at the committee regarding the potential to exclude electoral areas from the RGS, and that would require a board request to the minister and approval of the minister prior to initiating an RGS. So a request of that nature would need to be accompanied by supporting rationale. And just further to that, I know there was some discussion specifically about electoral areas F and G, and it's important to note that a large portion of electoral area F supports the Cowichan watershed. And so there is a watershed and population heat map that was attached to the report that kind of helps to illustrate the parts of the region where there's more population density relative to the electoral areas. So there's also been some discussion with individual directors about representation on the steering committee and intergovernmental advisory committee. These committees are intended to be technical in nature and comprised of agency staff and government staff representatives with the potential for inclusion of First Nations representatives on the broader intergovernmental advisory committee. So it's important that there remain a separation between technical and political committees to avoid conflict of interest and ensure transparency. And notwithstanding that, if the board is wanting more community representation, the engagement plan for the RGS could look at inclusion of a community advisory committee with broad regional public representation. There has been some discussion about engagements with advisory planning commissions, and unfortunately that model is not supported under the legislation, as those commissions are set up to receive matters in regards to Part 14 of the Local Government Act, which speaks to local official community plans, zoning bylaws, and associated permit issues. So there's also been some discussion about voting in relation to RGS and the way voting works, and I think that our corporate officer can provide more detail on this, but generally, the way that it works within RGS is one director, one vote. Directors for areas that don't participate in an RGS don't vote on RGS matters, except at the time of initiation of an RGS, any boundary changes to the area to which a regional growth strategy is to apply, implementation agreements that would come later, and then acceptance. And acceptance is by participating individual municipalities and then the board as a whole. Cowichan 2050, as was noted, is attached to the report and provides a high-level framework for regional collaboration. Was an excellent, piece of work that was done a few years ago, and much of that content is still relevant today. Provides a good foundation for RGS work and could be enriched through further technical and infrastructure and servicing studies, dialogue with First Nations, and a robust public engagement process that doesn't seek to duplicate efforts already being undertaken to develop OCPs and local area plans. Those are my comments, and I'm here for questions should you have them.
I turn to committee. Do we want to jump into questions right away, or do questions now, then go round table and contemplate putting materials on the floor for discussion? The questions to staff will end at that point. So I just look to my colleagues and ask what their thoughts are. So I've got round table, I got questions. I think, why don't we do, if we've got some preliminary questions for Ms. Terrell, if we can ask them now, and I think we can perhaps do the round table afterwards, and then if that generates any more questions for staff, we can have staff come back up again and pose some more questions, and then when we get into the meat of considering the resolutions, the questions to staff will end. So with that, I'll go to Director Abbott.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Terrell. We've heard passionately this morning for public engagement. Is there flexibility in this process to engage, allow opportunities for the public, be it a public meeting or something along those lines?
Thank you, through you, Chair, to Director Abbott. I would anticipate that public and community engagement will need to be a critical component of the development of an RGS, and development of an engagement strategy would, I think, first happen with through collaboration with the municipal representatives on the steering committee, but then would need to be thoroughly vetted by this group and the larger board. So yeah, there's certainly an opportunity for robust public engagement.
Dr. Wilson.
I did it.
Reignite. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, I will yield at this time. I have no real questions. I have comments.
Thank you, Director Wilson. Wow, I can see my name up there, but
It's me. Thank you. Didn't press the button. Thank you for all of that, Ms. Cherolf. I'm wondering about, you mentioned the opportunity for inviting First Nations to the steering committee or the intergovernmental body. Is that something we should be giving direction now, or do we is that invitation option open throughout the process?
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Segal. So the board has already given direction to provide letters and an invitation to local First Nations to participate in the RGS process. We've not yet done that because obviously we want to see a formal resolution to initiate from the board first.
Follow up? And then, but for the steering committee, for participation in the steering committee?
For participation in the Intergovernmental Advisory Committee, there's certainly an opportunity and a hope that our local First Nations would participate in that committee, and I think it's reflected in the terms of reference that were attached, the draft.
Great. Can I get one more, just?
Oh, sure.
On the regional conservation strategy, you mentioned it's a possibility, but it's not in the terms of reference right now. Is that something you'd be looking for direction around?
Through you, Chair. So as you're aware, the Environmental Services Group was recently added to the Land Use Services Department, and so with that, there was an opportunity to review Environmental Services work plan and budgets, and there is budget in 2025 to undertake a regional conservation strategy, so we've identified that as an opportunity to provide good foundational knowledge for the RGS. I would expect that Environmental Services staff would come back to committee with information about how that project could roll out in more details and a draft project charter.
I don't know when Director Martman put his virtual hand up because WebEx doesn't tie into this incredible new technology, but I'm going to go to Director Martman first.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to staff for this and having this moment or this time to think about it. I guess I stay with questions. I'd like to go back to the public engagement question because I think you answered it based on initiating a public RGS. I'm more interested in public engagement before the initiation, before a decision on initiation, to gauge what the communities have to say. What is the opportunity, possibilities for doing that?
Ms. Trill.
Through you, Chair, to Director Martman and the rest of the directors. So the electoral area directors, if you were looking to do electoral area specific engagement on any topic, have budget within your EA 250 budget for community engagement. So I would suggest that I would turn that back to you. Staff could certainly come back with a report on engagement options and alternatives, and we could go for there. But certainly that could happen in advance of a decision to formally initiate.
Do you have any follow-up questions?
Oh, I do. I'll just have one for now. I'll put my hand up if I have others. The second one is, I listened to the meeting that we had in November, and there was a number of questions I thought were questions that sort of came out of there, but I was trying to consolidate it in my mind. And I don't think this is. I just want to try to get something on the record. What is the benefit to opt out for an electoral area? And I'm thinking specifically of one that is, on the edge of a regional district that might have a case to make that its use of services is limited in the regional district and finds itself sort of on the margins and in many things. So I'm looking at what are the benefits for opting out?
Ms. Gerolf, do you want to tackle that one?
Through you, Chair, I would suggest to Director Martman that the question is a leading question. So I'm challenged to answer a leading question. I would say that, which isn't a direct response, but that the regional growth strategy would be as much about providing a plan to accommodate growth as it would to protect areas that need to be protected from growth. And in that sense, areas that contain significant agricultural resources, natural resources, water resources are just as important to an overall regional growth strategy as are the areas that are planned for settlement.
Does that conclude your remarks for now, Director Martman?
For now, thank you.
Or your questions for now? Go to Director Deck next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Troll. I feel hesitation to move forward with a strategic growth plan or strategy based on my concern for water first and foremost. But and I hear some hesitation from my colleagues. So when I was looking up information about regional growth strategies, I saw something that's called regional issues assessments, which is a pre-strategic growth plan, but it's also a review of the issues affecting local governments and includes outreach to the public, higher levels of government. And I'm just wondering if you could tell me more about regional issues assessments.
Ms. Gerolf.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Director Deck. That isn't something that I have a lot of familiarity with, but I would certainly expect that it could be similar to the work that was done in the South Cowichan, which was a community sort of issues assessment for the electoral areas in the South, identifying general, community sentiments around planning, infrastructure services, fire, governance, and in that sense may inform, a decision as to whether or not the board wishes to undertake an RGS. I would, however, suggest that there has been a tremendous amount of public consultation that's gone on through the development of the official community plan for the electoral areas, first through the harmonization and more recently through the process of modernizing that electoral area official community plan. And the development of local area plans. And similarly, the municipalities have all undertaken recent official community plan processes as well, which would have identified community issues through those processes.
Do you have a follow-up?
I'll hold for now. I'll form a question. Thank you.
And I'd like to just remind everyone, I think that from a process perspective, if you have some questions for Ms. Gerolf now, we'll go round table and we'll again offer her opportunity to come up and answer any questions that may be generated from the discussion that we have after that. So hang on, we've got, and we've got Director Acton next, and it is Director Nicholson, not alternate Director Lochner. So Director Acton, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. That was an interesting question from Director Deck. That brings up some interesting ideas, and and I also have a question from Director Martman's question. So I have two questions. So first, your response was to, in both instances, to consult with the electoral areas, but why would we not consult regionally when this is a regional plan?
Through you, Chair.
Go for it.
Thank you. So I think that really it's up to this body to decide. It's a bit of a political question, right? If you're wanting to engage with your community specifically, you have an avenue to do that. There's budget to do that through your EA 250 budget. But yes, would it be intended as a regional strategy? And we would seek through an engagement process to engage with communities across the region, but at a regional level, at a high level.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Your second question?
It's creating comments for me, but I will hold them.
That's very much appreciated by the chair.
And then my original question, I think has escaped me. Oh, yes. Are you aware of the work that the province is doing around moving boundaries? They're discussing moving boundaries of regional districts based on the actual sensibility of geography and flow and instead of this arbitrary system.
Ms. Drolf?
Through you, Chair, no, I mean, I've heard anecdotally that there may be work of that nature occurring, but I can't tell you a lot about it. I'm not sure that it needs to have a tremendous bearing on the process and discussion that's at hand right now, because I anticipate that this is going to be a multi-year process. And so if for some reason boundaries were adjusted, that could be reflected in the development of an RGS.
Right. Well, I think the timing, it is happening the same time as the treaty work is happening too. So I think it would be worthwhile having a conversation with the province and understanding what work they're doing, but that's just my opinion. Didn't keep to myself, sorry, Chair. It's not really a question, but I think it's something that we should be aware of.
If I could add just one comment, I am
Please.
sitting on a provincial working group, which is comprised of other regional district staff or planners who are involved in regional growth strategy development or have adopted regional growth strategies. And I believe we have a meeting coming up shortly, and I'll certainly pose that question to that group because it has provincial representatives.
Well, I'm trying to keep it to 2, but go ahead, 3.
Well,
I know, go. Yeah. Where are you here?
Yeah. It's just news to us that you, or at least to myself, that you're on this committee. So that's interesting to know, like, what kind, like, who's driving, what is the province funding this committee, and what is their goal in doing this? Is it an attempt to have all regional districts have a growth strategy, or like what's the?
Through you, Chair.
Ms. Trill, go ahead.
I'll try to be brief. So it's a province through the Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs has a group that's focused on regional growth strategies, and they've very recently established a working group to, and it's simply a forum for sharing information amongst regional districts who are either implementing RGS or considering the implementation of RGS. And as you recall, the province has provided funding to the CBRD to undertake an RGS, and because of that, there was a natural sort of inclination of the province to invite CBRD to participate in any of those discussions.
Thank you, Director Acton. And I just want to note, from a process perspective, like the remarks and the inquiry from Director Acton on the boundary extensions, however it's characterized, is I've heard that same sort of talk going on, and I think that's incredibly important when it comes to sort of what work would be done. So I'm looking to staff as to, like, I think that's a very legitimate inquiry, and I think it's information that we would like to have if there's something that is officially underway with the province. Noting that electoral areas near municipal boundaries, that's a lot of our tax base and residents, and I think having that information would be really important. So do we need are you looking for a resolution to inquire about that, or can you take it as direction to staff to find out what's actually going on there? What are your thoughts, Ms.
Thank you,
Rolfe?
Chair. So I don't think a resolution is needed, and staff will undertake to get some feedback or input from the province prior to next week's board meeting.
Thank you. Director Nicholson.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gerald. I really appreciate the map in the last of the attachments, attachment H. It would be really super good if you could blow it up and put it on a wall so we could all study it whenever we come in, so we have sort of an appreciation for the the complication of watersheds and growth patterns. I have 3 questions, and I'll start with the first one, and I agree with this previous discussion about this information about boundaries. So from my perspective, I think I also need to know whether the province, if they are doing this readjustment kind of thinking, then are they going to require us to do a regional growth strategy? Or I need to understand how close we are to the province requiring us to do a regional growth strategy, and what would sort of trigger that. So right now we have the option, but I'm anticipating in the future that we won't have that option, and I'd like to know when that kind of trigger point might be. And I think part of that discussion is, from my perspective, you wouldn't want to adjust boundaries without having a regional growth strategy to kind of base those decisions on, I would think, I would hope, but you never know. So those are kind of things I would like answers to, and I don't know if you have those right now.
So through the chair, to Director Nicholson, the RGS is currently an optional process, and until such time as it's mandated, it'll continue to be so. However, the province can mandate it. I mean, they have, the authority to do that if they wish to do that. There has been discussion about the option to include as additional matters in the development of an RGS discussion around potential boundary changes to accommodate the region's needs. And to be a little bit more sort of clear about that, we look at situations perhaps involving improvement districts who have limited authorities, for instance, around bylaw enforcement, that may be better served for the community if those were located within a municipal boundary. Another may be lands adjacent to a municipality that could potentially be served or are served by municipal services. Would there be an advantage to a boundary adjustment to accommodate growth in those areas? Would there be a compelling reason? Understanding that the powers of a regional district are different than the powers of a municipality. And there are many things that a municipality can do that a regional district cannot do with respect to control over land and activities. Tree cutting is, one notable example. There's some limitations or significant limitations to regional district when it comes to that particular topic. And roads, is the other significant example where municipalities have control over roads. Obviously, in electoral areas, that lies with MOTT, the province.
Question number 2.
Right, but when you talk to them, would you mind asking them if there's something that, in particular, that might trigger them to require?
I will certainly do that.
Thank you. So my second question is about First Nations. So from my perspective, that is the one thing that is potentially going to be, that is one of the 2 things I think that is going to be of significant issue in sort of directing change, how the region will change in the future. And so for their participation, from my perspective, is absolutely essential. So my question is, do we have the resources to ensure that they are able to participate? I know that capacity is an issue, and letter inviting them is not going to do it. So do we have the resources to do that?
Ms. Terrell.
Thank you. That's an excellent question, and I think I'll say this, we don't really know until we ask the question. We do have excellent examples of work that's been done through the development of the local area plans, particularly in respect of the Sibasit and Malahat nations, the development of or undertaking complete communities assessment, the work that our Strategic Initiatives Division has done. And that has significantly enriched the development of the local area plans, where we have been able to have that involvement and engagement of the local First Nations. And I think we would seek to try to replicate that through the development of the regional growth strategy. And it is important to note that First Nations reserve lands are not subject to an RGS. However, there may be other lands that the nations own or have interest in that may be subject to an RGS or local government official community plans and zoning bylaws. So there's a significant interest there. It's important to understand, if nations are willing to share with us what their economic development and development aspirations are, and to consider whether a regional growth strategy could align or support those objectives. And certainly it could result in, redefinition of growth containment boundaries, for instance, to see that alignment. I think that additional resources could be made available through government agencies for supplemental First Nations engagement to support that work. The regional growth strategies legislation it's old. Quite honestly, it's been around for, I think, 25 years or so. And I think initially, was drafted at a time when, the expectations and understanding of importance of First Nations engagement, it wasn't at the same level as it is today. And it's been quite some time since a regional growth strategy was prepared and adopted in BC. And so I think this is an opportunity to do something that's a bit unique.
Question number 3.
Right, thank you. Okay, so switch to this conservation strategy notion. So the other issue that I think is incredibly important is water. We have another application on our agenda this afternoon about water in the Cook Island. And that's, we're just the first watershed that you're starting to see this. And things are going to continue to go down that road. So it strikes me that we need to think through very carefully what this conservation strategy can provide us for basing some of these decisions on where growth should be. And it's, I know that there isn't good information about a lot of the aquifers. So this becomes, in part, a risk assessment, but it needs to be very transparent and it needs to be very thorough and not just a cursory kind of what we know now. We need to do some actual digging. So I think that's incredibly important. I guess my question is around how we're going to move forward with this, because we haven't really seen any terms of reference for this. We're talking about it, but to me it's crucial for this whole thing. So when will we see something that we can provide input on about this?
Through the chair, so specific to regional conservation strategy, I think that we were looking at Q4 for a report to committee on how that would roll out. And seeking input from committee, obviously. Yeah. In terms of reference, yes.
Dr. Wilson.
Thank you, Chair, and I didn't have any questions, and now I do. Thank you. Yeah, I'll accept that.
Skills, hashtag skills.
Thank you, Anne. And I'll try not to make this a leading question or a question which has a huge lead up. You said just earlier on there, the purpose of a regional growth strategy is to, and I missed writing down what that purpose was. Could you just repeat that first time, please?
Thank you. Through the chair, so the statement was to promote human settlement that's socially, economically, and environmentally healthy and makes efficient use of public facilities and services, land, and other resources.
Good. I'll get that from you later on. Thank you very much. And the second question is, 2 words come to mind here, overlap and priorities, which come to me. And I try not to make this leading. Would a regional growth strategy take priority over a accepted MOCP, our own MOCP, or LAP? Which takes priority if there was an RGS in place?
So through the chair, as I've noted, I anticipate that the development of an RGS would take multiple years. There's a draft 3-year plan to undertake the work, and that starts with, undertaking background work, engaging with nations, the going out to public and the kind of looking at potential modifications to any existing growth containment boundaries that would come later once we have the information that's needed to support those decisions. We are nearing the end of, hopefully, the development and adoption of a modernized official community plan and local area plans. That's kind of anticipated to be completed this year. It would be my expectation that the OCP for the electoral areas and the OCPs for the municipalities provide kind of a starting point for the discussions around a regional growth strategy that could then later be refined or tweaked. But ultimately, the regional growth strategy document is the highest level planning and strategic document under the legislation. And so once that's adopted, there's a need for the CVRD and the municipalities to examine their respective OCPs and to ensure that, to develop regional context statements for those documents and to ensure that the policies in those documents align with the RGS.
Okay. Yeah.
But really, it comes down to how strict is the RGS. Is it a very rigid document and then very prescriptive and then requires OCPs to be very prescriptive in response, or is it more aspirational and requires less sort of prescription in the OCP? And that's really unknown because we haven't done the work yet, right?
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, that's what worries me, that
Is it a question?
it is, we'll get there. That's what worries me in as much as the term, the highest level of whatever. So we're gonna get conflict, and I hope we don't. Thank you. No question was there.
Okay, I'm going to go to Director McClinton, then I've got a quick question, then I'm going to suggest we take a very short break because I need to, and then we'll get into roundtable. Director McClinton.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, I know that we got a grant from the province for $250,000, which people may remember I voted against. I was one of the few people. But I'm just curious, can we anticipate, I didn't know it would be approximately 3 years. That's good information. How much would this work cost approximately, and who's going to be doing the work if we were to enter into? So like I guess my real question is, how much more than the grant do we need to put into
Thank you.
this?
Through the chair, I believe that some estimates were provided in a previous staff report, and I believe it was in the staff report that went to committee back in October. And I think that the 3-year estimate was around $850,000.
Thank you.
So my question, I'm not going to do a preamble other than many of us were at ABICC on the weekend, and there was an awful lot of chat going on with folks that are in RGS areas and not. But my question is I think pretty straightforward. When we started talking about this after the last election, unanimity was a word that was bandied around a fair bit, and it was the understanding of a number of us that unanimity was required going in. And what I just learned on the weekend was, in order for there to be any changes, adjustments, opening up is the term that was used, unanimity is required once an RGS is in place. So can you just comment on the minimum requirements to initiate an RGS, to adopt an RGS, and to modify an RGS in terms of unanimity?
I think if you will allow me, I'll ask, sorry to put you on the spot, Coralie. Are you able to come up and respond to the question from the chair around the voting procedures at the time of initiation, adoption?
Initiation, adoption,
and amendment?
And amendment. Welcome, Ms. Breen.
And I'm calling Ms. Breen, Dr. Breen, to the lectern as she's been through this process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome, Dr. Breen. You want me to repeat the question?
No, it's okay. Thank you. So to the directors, at initiation, at the board, it would be a majority vote of those who are participating. So that if all electoral areas and all municipalities, it's a majority vote. When it comes to acceptance of an RGS at the other end, this is what the procedure is. All local governments are sent the draft RGS. They are asked to accept or not accept it. If they don't write back to the regional district, they've accepted it. They can write back with a resolution saying that they've accepted, or they can write back and say, we don't accept it, and if a municipality doesn't accept it, they have to list the sections that they don't accept and give very clear reasons why not. And I've been through that process, so I can, if you want further information, I can tell you what happens then.
Can I just ask, is that privilege only granted to municipalities, or can an electoral area?
That privilege is only given to the municipalities. So the electoral areas are not given the opportunity to accept or not accept. Now, once that process happens, let's say all the municipalities accept. It comes back to the board table, and then everyone, the electoral areas and the municipalities, then can vote on the actual bylaw. So there's a bylaw, an establishing bylaw at the end of the process. That, again, is by majority vote. So electoral area directors do have an opportunity to vote on the bylaw, but they do not have the opportunity to accept or not accept. If the situation comes where only one local government or more do not accept, and it only needs one local government to not accept, then it goes to a dispute resolution process. And there are various different things that can happen in a dispute resolution process. There's 4 different levels of it, and I won't explain it unless the committee would like me to, but that's generally the process. So at the beginning, a majority vote. At the end, an acceptance. It goes to the local governments only. If all accept, it comes to the board, and it's a vote by the electoral area directors and all the local governments.
And the last part of that is when an RGS is established and there's a desire amongst any of the participants to amend, is that a unanimous vote of all participants just to open it up?
So if we are to confirm my understanding of the question through the chair, if the RGS is adopted by bylaw and there is a motion put forward, let's say, to amend the urban containment boundary by one of the municipalities, it comes to the entire board. That's a board decision to amend. That's generally the process.
Sorry to be sticking on this point, but I'm just one of our neighboring regional districts explained to me on the weekend that there has been a desire amongst a number of electoral areas to open up and amend the RGS, and they have been instructed that it requires unanimity of the entire board to open up their RGS. That's what I'm trying to get at. Is it requiring unanimity to amend an established RGS?
At that point, yes.
I don't have any, I've got Director Abbott, but that's round 2. Can you hold that until after we've gone round table? Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you, Chair, for excellent inquiries and for Ms. Breen answering them so succinctly.
Thank you. Let's be back here at 11:15, and then we will hear comments from everyone. Thank you, Ms. Terrell. stomach is churning. Welcome back, everyone. We are now about to embark on I would suggest we're going to go round table with all the directors when we have all the directors seated and the gallery seated and listening and CAO seated and then we're going to, yeah, apparently. So I'm going to recommend we follow the tradition of the local nation and go counterclockwise in our discussions. I would suggest that 5 minutes for general remarks per director would be appropriate. Is there anyone have any other suggestions, or do you want more? Let's shoot at 5, and if you gotta go over, then we won't put the timer on you. How's that sound? So we have some additional information from Ms. Terrell.
Thank you,
Please.
Chair. No, I think some discussion with our CAO. It's important just to kind of clarify the comment made about unanimity, and what's being referred to is acceptance by the municipalities of regional growth strategy bylaw or amendment bylaw, and acceptance by the board generally, but the vote comes down to one director, one vote at the board. So it doesn't need to be a unanimous vote at the board on the bylaw or the bylaw amendment. Just for clarity. The majority, yes.
Understood. That still gives, never mind, I won't know. Put that in my remarks. Thank you for that, Ms. Terrell. So with that, I can't believe I just said so out loud, but we'll start round table counterclockwise, and normally Director Martman is in the first seat, so I'm going to go to Director Martman remotely, and please proceed. You have 5 minutes plus or minus.
Thank you, Chair, and I wish I was there. I picked up an awful bug last week, and this is actually my first day sitting in a chair. So, good morning, everybody. I think I just wanted to build off of the Chair's remark of having a churning in his stomach. I'm not sure we have the same. I have the same churning, maybe not from the same reason. I'm not talking about the bug. I was just listening to some of the answers to the questions, and probably sometimes it's more leading to look at the question itself. And I ended up with this churning feeling because I just had this epiphany of the Diamond's going to end up in Ladysmith, and North Oyster is going to end up in the regional district of Nanaimo. Like, I'm going, like, on my watch, is this happening? It's an awful feeling for me to think that is coming, regardless of an RGS or not. It's just, you learn these things and you wonder what's happening and that you just don't know. I'm starting that because change is hard. Change is really tough. And I think this is what we're potentially looking towards. And strategies help us with change. Is this the right strategy? Is this the right time for the strategy? I had a town hall, some of you may know, on Thursday night, and the RGS came up, and certainly pros and cons to the RGS. But what was really, really clear is the community wants to learn and wants to be involved before an initiation vote is taken on entering into an RGS. From a farming perspective, maybe best analogy is putting the cart before the horse. Try running down the road with that. It just does not work. And I think the community is pretty representative at this town hall. It's 33 members, diverse opinions, pro and con, but fairly common answer about what will this mean? what can it mean if we stay, if we in it? What does it mean if we're out of it? And those are the questions that they want to hear answers to. I also offered a rather the part of it that we're not discussing, and that's the pragmatic approach to what we're facing. And I think those answers to the questions from the chair really illuminate the issues that we're facing as electoral area directors. The one director, one vote means that if we aren't all for one, one for all as electoral area directors, then we will face this as a majority decision of municipalities. And we may not have that option to opt out. We may not be given that ability to go to a minister and say our area is not going to be part of it. So the pragmatic part is, do we have everything that we want as electoral areas to say that we're in this together? Because if we're not in this together, then through separation and division, the votes of the majority will pull us through into an RGS. Maybe that's the right thing. I'm not sitting here to say it's the wrong thing. There are some really strong things in my community, and you know about them: the aquifer, the agricultural land, the rural nature of it. I can go on and on. We live in paradise, as each of you have your areas as a bit of a paradise. But I want the pragmatic approach to come up in discussion today, because I don't want to turn around in a week from now and feel that we haven't put what we really need, that we haven't made a decision that is reflecting all our needs so that we can all get behind that. Municipalities are doing this. They're sitting down. They have great staff to advise them, and we are sitting here today much as a council of the electoral areas. And so that's where I'm thinking we need to make if we're going to make a referral back on this topic, we should be really strong and really clear together. That's for me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Martman. Go to Director Nicholson next. You need your mic pressed. You're red as go.
Thank you. I agree with a lot of what Director Martman has said, and I think Ms. Breen's explanation that electoral areas really don't have the same power that munis do when it comes to an RGS really just speaks to the need to modernize the legislation around regional growth strategies. And it's a problem, and but at the same time, I think a regional growth strategy could be really helpful for this region, because I feel pretty strongly that we don't have good information at the present time on which to direct change. So change is happening. I've seen incredible change already regionally, and I really think we need to step back and outside of our jurisdictions and think about the region as a whole and understand the risks and put the wheels in motion to get that kind of work started and thinking started. I am very nervous about having sat here for a long time, having watched our ability to think regionally and not just for the benefit of our little areas. I also have, I am not sure that we, it's just such a challenge to be able to try and understand where people are coming from and find the common ground to make something like this successful, because I agree with Director Martman. We have to kind of view this as a council for the rural areas, and I think protecting the rural areas is very, very important for the future. So from my perspective, having a regional growth strategy which would strengthen the growth containment is the way that we need to go. I also think this conservation strategy thing has not been thought out yet, and that is going to be key, and so we need the time to make sure that that is going to provide the foundational piece of information. I think environmental capacity, those are the challenges that we face in the future, so understanding where the risks are for the wildfire, which will only grow, the water, and so forth. You know, we have to take that seriously now. And the First Nations thing, of course, is absolutely critical, and I'm not convinced that we have the resources in place to actually make that work well. But we should definitely try, I think. I'm sure I have other things that just off the top of my head, that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you, Director Nicholson. Director Deck.
Thank you, Chair. When I see, you know, the really deeply felt concerns of those area directors who are worried their constituents or their residents will, their wishes will be dismissed. It affirms for me my belief in a bioregional growth strategy, that it doesn't have artificial boundaries of areas, but looks at watersheds, biodiversity, saving agricultural land, looks at the big picture that I hope we could all agree on. And so that's my feeling about the growth strategy, that it is, as Director Martman put it so well, sort of the cart before the horse, that a housing strategy, or the housing, what is it? Thank you. That's the first thing that a regional growth strategy looks at. And I'm thinking, well, there are things that must happen before that, which is why I'm beginning to think about the idea of the risk assessment, which, as Ms. Churov put it so well, you know, we've got a lot of the background material already. And then using that risk assessment, that would include the province and the municipalities in advance of a regional growth strategy could provide us with the confidence that all of us then could say, yes, we're in it, or possibly not. But to start with, I hate to say this, like the regional growth strategy as it's currently proposed, not the bioregional. Really, once you're in it till the end. So I'm beginning to feel the concern or the hesitation that other directors have expressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, fellow directors. I think I heard Director Martman mention a fear of change, and it is human nature to be concerned about change. I am representing a rather small area geographically, and potentially going to become even smaller if boundary adjustments happen, and by larger municipalities or municipalities that border us. I feel that an RGS makes abundant practical sense, and I feel I'm a bit of a pragmatist, and there, so I tend to fall in favor of pragmatic approaches to anything. I also feel that we need a better way to plan for growth, and the RGS, by all accounts, is that plan. I recognize that some parts of our region are very rural, very spread out, very forest-oriented, and perhaps that's where the hesitation towards change stems from. You do not wish to lose your flavor. I live in a very small area, as mentioned, and we are now out of water until a solution can be found. We're part of the same, possible new homes depend upon that Coxsala aquifer, which Director Nicholson mentioned. We don't know much about our aquifers, and I think there are many residents who own property in Area D that it hasn't fully sunk in that they may own property, but until we find a solution, they may not be building a house on it. So their property value could conceivably be next to nil. I do feel, and again, Ms. Breen answered some questions about change once the RGS is established, but I do feel as we formulate this plan, this RGS, that it is flexible. There are ways for it to adapt. There are ways for community engagement. It's getting it right at the outset, because it would seem that unanimity is required to make changes in the future. There must be something implicit in why that removing, changing, or altering something after an RGS is established makes sense. And or maybe it needs to be challenged. But when we decide that this is the growth containment boundary and we're not going to run a pipeline to close to Port Renfrew for water, there's an obvious pragmatic approach that let's live within our growth containment boundaries. And I've heard concerns that it's come up through correspondence, through director comments, that our staff are taxed at present to finish the modernized OCP, and this is going to be an imposition on staff time and resources, and it's going to cost more money. I feel that, as Ms. Charolf mentioned, the MOCP has led itself, it's a precursor for the RGS. So much of the good works that's currently underway and just about complete will help us to develop that RGS. And I think, to allow others to comment, I think those are my overarching views. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Abbott. We'll go to my namesake, but Director Skull.
Thank you, Chair. I really appreciate this opportunity you've given to all of our committee members. And I'll try to be within the 5 minutes. I want to kind of go big picture for a moment and just say, reference the Local Government Act, which says the purpose of a regional growth strategy is to promote human settlement that is socially, economically, and environmentally healthy, making efficient use of land, public services, and infrastructure. This kind of mission statement really makes sense to me, and I haven't heard anyone around the table debate those values. I think we share a common ground there, and important for us to remember that. I have heard concerns about trust in the process and maintaining autonomy, and I want to make a really important note. From last week, I wasn't able to support a resolution to exclude a couple of areas because it goes against my values of regional governance principles. Not because I don't respect the unique value that each area has. And I would be happy to support the best choice for each area when it comes to going through this process with everyone involved in the discussion. And I would never support the destruction of community that Director Martman mentioned. I genuinely want to understand the perspectives around the table, and I'm listening for convincing rationale to exclude specific areas. I want to recognize the work around this table can be really frustrating at times, and we so rarely get to speak just openly and candidly like this, so I really appreciate the chair's allowing for this. To paraphrase something I learned from Ellie Mina, we must make space for every voice to be heard, including, most importantly, the minority voices. And it is our duty to keep our minds open so that when we cast our individual votes with as much, we can do that with as much context and care as possible. And in the end, majority does rule, as we have heard clarified a number of times. It's not unanimity, but it is majority. And I've been on the losing side of votes right off the bat when I got elected. It doesn't feel great, but this is the system that we're in, and all we can do is our collective best. So with that, I do want to share just a few reasons why I think RGS is a smart, future-focused decision for our region, and mainly because it's in the best interests of our tax-paying constituents. The efficient use of infrastructure and services, RGS would help us to avoid redundant, poorly planned infrastructure, like really expensive roads, really expensive water systems spread out over really big areas, and spread out sewer systems. We want to clearly identify where growth is feasible and where it's not. And where it's not feasible, protect those areas. That clarity will help developers. It will protect taxpayers and reduce costly mistakes. And it strengthens our local land use decisions by rooting them in servicing capacity and environmental impact. And on that, stronger environmental stewardship, it protects rural areas from the pressure of sprawl that I've seen a lot in my area. We now have services that have so few users and spread over such a big area that the tax base isn't there to upgrade those facilities. Better coordination means smarter spending. When we plan together, we reduce duplication. We can attract investment in transportation, transit. If we're able to densify populations along transit corridors, BC Transit will reward that. They've rewarded the CRD with that. And it supports reconciliation through meaningful partnerships. As we've heard, I've gone back and listened to a few other meetings. The number one way local governments can support First Nations is through fair, forward-thinking servicing agreements. We know our nations are desperate for water and sewer servicing capacity, and we can be partners in that. And we've already been given the $250,000 from the province to support this work. I think that's a really strong message from the province that they want us to do that. I really don't like turning down funding that helps us to do things better, especially when that getting funding from the province can feel very, very rare. So the last note I want to just for us to remember is that the rigidity of this RGS is absolutely up to us. We can decide whether it's high level and aspirational or really drilled down and detailed and prescriptive. That's our prerogative. And I hope I've demonstrated and encouraged listening around the table so that we can make this a collaborative process with the intent that everyone feels the right choice for their area is being heard and implemented. So I want to do this the right way. I want to do it in a way that the group can support collaboratively, transparently, and with respect for the different needs across our communities. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Director Segal. Director Wilson, you're up next. You got to press a button, though. Red is go.
Where to start, eh? First of all, I'm not going to repeat anything that's been said before, all good points. But I will start off by saying that I am not in favour of moving forward with this the way it's been presented at the moment. Timing, to me, is everything. And in this case, I don't feel that the timing is beneficial to the present MOCP and HOCP works. In the staff report, it says that directors may have concerns about timing of RGS initiation with other critical in-stream initiatives, namely the MOCP and electoral areas official community plan and local area plans. Staff are firmly of the opinion that these projects have advanced significantly and would not be jeopardized by initiation of the RGS. I don't share that opinion at all, I'm afraid. There is one of the references as well as the Regional Growth Strategies and Explanatory Guide of 2006. It's 19 years ago. And it may not be relevant anymore. especially in these changeable times. Things are happening so quickly around everywhere. The HOCP and MOCP changes, they continue to be a massive undertaking, and maybe they'll be completed in later this year, maybe they won't. But once that is completed, it's my opinion that we as a regional district will have our own de facto regional growth strategy. Then and only then can we think about moving ahead with a larger proposed regional growth strategy. Hang on a second. Let me just. I've spoken with Mr. Elf, and the wording of the purpose of a regional growth strategy is to promote human settlement that is socially, economically, and environmentally healthy, and that makes efficient use of public facilities and services, land, and other resources. That, to me, surely is the purpose and goal of our present HOCP and MOCP works. The same thing. And one of the things that concerns me, I'll repeat it again, we've spent 4 years, 5 years, I don't know how long on those works. We spent a huge amount of money, and yet, if it's completed and a regional growth strategy comes in, that will take priority. That was the question that I asked. That's the highest level. So what is the point of us even carrying on with something like the HOCP if it's going to be made redundant? It scares me. It really does. At this present time, with all the changes that are going on, I think we need to complete what we're doing first before we move ahead with something else. And that is it for the time being. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Wilson. Red as go.
Thank you, Chair. I think I appreciate everyone's comments, and mine might be a little more scattered, not as, I don't think, so linear as many of you, so I hope you can, I'll just spit it out, do what you will with it. First, I have a question for all of us. Has anyone read a regional growth strategy? It feels the same as what our MOCP and HOCP is supposed to do, and those items were sold to us. And I say sold because we sat at this table, some of us wanted to start our own OCPs, some had been promised, some were underway. And it was like, no, 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 no. This is gonna be so efficient and it's gonna work for all these things. And that may be so, we haven't even given it a chance yet. We haven't actually started to really work with it and finish that process. And I agree, it's timing. And I think that's why we're getting the pushback from the community of, whoa, wait a minute, where's my input? And we're saying on one hand that, yes, we're gonna consult with the community. But you know what, that consulting is not whether we're doing a regional growth strategy or not. That's it when it's done and what's your input. We're not consulting. We are. It's happening. We can look at the report. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that a regional growth strategy is not going to happen. It's coming. It's a matter of when. I've been at this table long enough that I know that when the steps are coming and set out, we're being told one thing. I hear it constantly. Oh, we're gonna have a chance to decide if we want to do this or not. You know what? That chance has come and gone, and we hear it every time. So I don't think we have that option anymore. We're being told that that's an option, but in reality, it's going to come to a vote that is being driven. This whole process has not been driven by electoral areas. We all agree regionally, whether we nitpick or not, we do have a regional view. We pay into a water function that's doing regional work. We pay into a housing function. We pay into Parks Master Plan, and we've set off to do a Parks ecological plan. We're doing all that work. We don't need a growth strategy to continue to do that work. The municipalities believe they need it to work across from each other. Perhaps the province has told them, we're not going to give you grants unless you have it. And so there's a strong push for that work. But that work is conflicting with what we're doing and how we want to have autonomy and preserve ourselves. So I actually have this huge hesitation because we are going to lose autonomy. And along with that autonomy is what makes our communities unique. Boundaries are going to move, and wherever water makes sense or sewer makes sense, it's not going to be a equal input both ways, or at least that's how I see it. And I see that we already have been given the work that has been going on that I can't remember what dollar value we're at, but we're at more than $1 million. And now we're committing to spend easily $1 million because I've never ever been given a quote early stages here that doesn't increase. Let me just see if there's anything else I wanted to, and I believe our MOCP and HOCP are gonna need some refinement, and we need to start using it and going, what are we missing here? I know some things that we're missing that we were not able to fund in the beginning. So clearly I would want those on the regional growth strategy, I guess, if that's where they go. But, so there is some things as a community that Area B definitely needs moving forward in the regional growth strategy, because I know it's happening, but I believe it should be happening with our next board. This is the next board's work. We need to complete our work that we've set out, in my opinion. There was one more comment that came to mind that I would like to share, and now it just escaped me because I have like my thoughts all over the place. My notes are like a little bit of a, circle, line, circle, line. Let me see where I'm at here. Yeah, I guess the only thing I'd like to add is if Area B kind of feels like, or at least by our last meeting, this high anxiety and a little bit of a lost autonomy, or not being able to really voice our opinion, I think it's real. This previous board agreed that the best thing for South Cowichan would be to just look at incorporation. Look at when does it make sense? Does it make sense? And the new board came, and there was strong competitiveness of, well, it's no secret that municipalities did not, or some municipalities did not want to see a potential municipality happening in the south, because then we may do better. And so that's not regional thinking. And now we're expected to go, oh, no, but now let's think collaboratively, and we will make sure that we're going to take care of what's best for South Cowichan. And I'm not feeling it. I have anxiety that that's not the case, because at this table, I'm one vote out of 15. And collectively, we're 3 votes out of 15. 16. There you go. I don't even know how many. 16. And, we have a new director in the South, and we'll have new directors again who may not who can come in hoping that, yeah, this is really going to work for us regionally. And I think at this table, although we have our moments, we're working together collaboratively, and I'd like to see that continue, and all of us kind of come along together. And along with our MOCP and HOCP. And then maybe there's a regional growth strategy. And, oh, that was the final thing that I wanted to say. When we discussed and were introduced to the concept through consultants, this is the previous board, MOCP, HOCP, there was no discussion of like, and then you top it off with a regional growth strategy. We were told, no, that's an old document. Those are going to the side with the dodo bird. So anyway, I'll just leave you with that. Thank you. Oh, I got one more comment.
Too late.
Is it too late? Just for the
Your
regional
mic's
thing.
still live, so you got the floor.
Just as regional thinking and protection that we're doing, we regionally, we are under MOTT. That's not going to change. We'll discuss it more this afternoon. And farmland is ALR, and that is already really strong. So do we need more controls, and are they going to take that? So anyway, it's creating, to me, it's a bit of a make work plan.
Thank you, Director Acton. Director McClinton.
Thank you, Chair, and fellow directors. I just appreciating the moment, how lucky we all are to sit here and you know, discuss this very important topic and be entrusted with the public has entrusted us with these decisions. Just really acknowledging the moment. I purposely wore a pink shirt today. I don't usually, because sometimes it's hard to tell where my skin ends and my shirt. But pink represents friendship, affection, harmony, inner peace, compassion, nurturing, and approachability. And I wanted to bring that to the table today. It's also my daughter's favorite color, and it gets me thinking about where things are going to be in 20 years from now. She's 5, about to be 6, and what that world's going to look like. And it's hard to imagine, because if I look back 25 years ago in Saltaire and on Thetis, but particularly Saltaire, how different my community was. It was geared towards families. The now community center was the Mount Brenton Elementary School with 600 kids in it. There was 5 or 6 kids, or 5 or 6 people living in every house. And, you know, we all moved away. Some of us are moving back. I'm a pretty good example of that. And just how things are shifting, and thinking that if somebody at that time in 1998 had put in a regional growth strategy and the challenges I'd be dealing with now. So it gets me thinking about that. It's my belief that in general, most of the areas, the electoral areas, the directors and staff, they know which areas have room for growth and which areas don't. You know, my area, for example, has plenty of room for growth if we wanted. That's not what the public sort of said during the process. And we've got lots of water, we've got lots of land on the other side of the highway, mind you, and some of it's private managed forest. But, you know, the document, our official community plan represents, you know, what we want in our area. And, you know, there's talk about thinking regionally, and which it's obviously tremendously important. We come and sit down here and we talk in good faith. I think we all think regionally. But understanding our communities and where we come from and that autonomy we talk about, I think that's maybe the wrong word, but I see that as a feature, not a bug. Like, I look to my fellow directors, they know their area. Like, Allison, you know about the Kokosala. Like, I don't even ever think I've been in the river, right? Like, and so I turned to you and looked to that, and you know, whether it's Thetis Island, I don't know how many directors other than me have ever been to Thetis, right? And so, you know, we're elected by our communities and then immediately told to say we need to think regionally. I mean, there's a balance there, and we're coming here representing the people that elected us, and we're doing our best. One of the other things that this regional growth strategy that is just, I've talked with dozens of people now, and of all different levels of government, community members, but we need to enter into the regional growth strategy with prejudice. I've never willingly ever entered into negotiations that I have to accept the outcome no matter what. And that's just that's virtually impossible for me to get past. There's no good faith. We enter in, and then I may have concerns and bring them up, and then I'm outvoted by a majority. Then on top of that, sorry, just let me gather my thoughts here. So that's a big issue for me. The folks that are worried about growth in their area, I think our OCPs are going to take care of that. I'm sure of it, and we're going to be good for the next 20 years, 10 to 20 years, and maybe they might get amended slightly, but then we can re-enter into negotiations. Then our predecessors, will be able to take that up at that time, and I just think about leaving them the opportunity to stay flexible. We have, we want to focus our growth in specific areas. I think we're all committed to that, but removing that autonomy. Some of the things we've looked at, the $250,000, I am very happy to put a notice of motion forward. If there's specific work we want to get done, we're the regional district. Like, we can sit here and we can initiate that work. I will say right now, I will operate in good faith. If we need to get work done on aquifers and understand, is there water there? I support that. I support that work. If we need to limit growth in Cowichan Bay, I support that, right? But to enter into this regional growth strategy, gives me a lot of concern. And I'm going to speak now specifically about Area G, right? And this isn't meant to point fingers, but this is what's on the ground in Area G for sure. People came and spoke to my community about regional rec and the cost that it was going to be. And we were told between $100 and $150 per household about. We're looking anywhere from $400 to $500. There's a serious lack of trust in our community, and for me to go and say, yeah, but the regional growth strategy is different, and at the same time, and again, we have contractors doing the work. It's not the CVRD, but we can't even get our streets plowed. I'm getting hundreds of messages every Christmas because they're not getting salted. So those are some of my big concerns. And there's a couple other things that is picked up. I just want to make a few other comments. We're talking about the First Nations and their right, the path to self-determination. I mean, it strikes me as incredibly ironic that requires us giving up our right for self-determination. One of my big regrets, because it was very early in me being elected, and I didn't have as much knowledge as I do now, but I wish I would have much better supported the directors from the South and their endeavor to look at incorporating. I think that would solve many of the issues we're talking about. Like, is there water in Cobble Hill? Well, if you're incorporated, you can pool your resources, and that's work that you can get on as a municipality. Anytime you add another layer of government, there's cost. There's no question. I think there's many things that we agree on. I would gladly continue to have conversations, as I did with many of you at AVICC. What does AVICC stand for, the people at home? Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities. And talk about the things we agree on, and I will support requisitions for those as an electoral service area. But moving into regional growth strategy is just something that, until there's a way that we know there's an off-ramp if we disagree, or we can have those negotiations without prejudice, I mean, my community, and more importantly, my community, is just not something that we can support. Actually, and the last thing I'll say, there's lots of talk about the province. This is my last point. Lots of talk about the province, changing boundaries, mandating things. If they do that, so be it. That's their prerogative. It took a national housing crisis for them to come out and change issues around housing. I've gone and looked. They are very reluctant to come in and get involved with local area issues. And if they decide to do so, then that's on them. But I think that we're doing good work here. We all take this job and responsibility very seriously, and I think we can continue to do that. And I think if this doesn't move forward, we can find a way to accomplish many of the things that we're concerned about. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director McClinton. And so I've got 3 pages. I won't go through all of it. So I want to start with, I want to thank our board chair for, reminding us that we come here with an open mind, that we need to be constantly weighing the inputs that we hear and our staff's direction and advice. And this is, I can't recall an item, maybe going back to the Eco Depot, but that I've had to do so much reading and rereading and rereading and rereading of material to come to a place where I can share what is, in my heart. And something that keeps coming up is what's the rush? And I just go back to the fact that when we came here and were first impaneled and sworn in, RGS wasn't in the discussion. So we've decided as a group to dip our toe in the water, but then again, I asked the question, what's the rush? And I'm going to use this saying because it's been used by many smart people before me, but it's the saying that, we have to be careful to not be so far out in front of our own people that they mistake us for the enemy and shoot us in the back. And that's the sense that I'm feeling here today, is that, we've been reading material and discussing. And so, at the RD, I was speaking to one of the elected officials from the RDN, and they're very enthusiastic about their regional growth strategy. And we're talking about all the great things that you can do and how they'll enable us to do all these things, and like the conservation study and how you, under the RGS, you can do a conservation study. And I said, well, we already have Function 131 environmental initiatives. Oh, well, you could do it anyways then. And then there was, but, and you could do a regional look at parks and trails and that sort of thing. And I said, well, we happen to have a regional parks function already. I'm guessing it's 325, but I could be wrong on that. We can, I said, we've already initiated and are in the process of finalizing a regional OCP for the electoral areas and a comprehensive zoning bylaw. And the gentleman looked at me like, sounds like you're doing a whole bunch of the RGS stuff already within your current structures. So having that discussion and many others, and the one I mentioned earlier this morning about the folks up at the other CBRD that have a RGS, and a number of the items, according to this electoral area director, a number of the items that were supposed to be initiated and completed in the early stages around servicing of fringe areas to municipalities haven't been done. We all know that the municipalities are under all sorts of great pressure to not only service old systems, but to expand, and there isn't a desire to be putting more pipe in the ground. So there's failing septic systems and the likes in areas, and this desire to open up that's why I asked the question this morning. How do we open things up to fix things? And I raised that question specifically because of something I heard last night at the MOCP meeting. And it was a gentleman, and I think he was from the south end. I don't want to ascribe which electoral area because I can't remember. I'm sure staff have a note of it. But the gentleman got up and said, in all these fast-paced, changing times, you know, how will we be able, and this is around the MOCP, how often can we like open this up and make changes and address things as they come up? I think we could do it every 2 to 3 years, couldn't we? And the answer was, you probably should let it soak for 5 years before you start making changes. We're looking at a far longer time frame that this would soak. And I have a real big challenge with that because one of the big things in our legislation is that we should not fetter or limit future boards. And this feels to me like this is fettering and limiting. Now, some people think that that may be a good thing. I trust that the decision-making that previous boards have made to not embrace an RGS were probably done for good reason. I've yet to see the rationale and the impetus and the urgency for us to go here now and just on the notion of, you know, efficient use of taxpayers' money, and even though it's a grant, it's still taxpayers' money. It comes off the same money tree. We did Cowichan 2050 specifically in response to the provincial desire to have an RGS or equivalent. And we did the Cowichan 2050 and didn't implement it. We're now just about at the end of our MOCP and working on the comprehensive zoning bylaw. And the comprehensive zoning bylaw is the thing that's got the teeth. I'm really anxious to see that. But the sense I'm getting, and this again goes to the timing, is are we going to do a document and then shelve it? And I know staff will say that we're not going to shelve it, it'll be a component part of the, I'm not so sure. I'm sitting here thinking that there's been amazing work done on the MOCP and engagement for the zoning. And I think we desperately need to put that in place, adopt the bylaws, put it to work, give the communities the certainty that they have been looking for. And then if an RGS is something that, an additional layer that could be brought in, sure, but not now. So I'll end with this. I haven't covered all of the notes. I'd love to talk about servicing in the ANOVA report because I thought that was a brilliant document. It's probably almost 10 years old now. But the feedback that I'm getting, and this isn't echo chamber stuff. I'm not going to people in the community that think like I do. I'm going to talk to people from all walks of life. And there is such engagement fatigue at this point that, you know, people are really wondering why the CVRD is coming and talking to them again about something new when we haven't finished what we started before. So I'm going to err on the side of caution and say that I'm still open to the concept, but the timing just isn't there. And I think we've got incredible work product that's been produced through the MOCP and the work that's ongoing with the comprehensive zoning bylaw. I'd like to give that a chance and see if it might just be the document and the leadership that this community needs now. So with that, I'll stop. I'm looking at, it's 12:10. Oh, Director Segal, hang on. You are red, apparently.
Thank you, Chair. I have some ideas, recognizing the time, that it is close to lunch, and we could all use a blood sugar boost, and that we've had such a good conversation. So I know RGS has been in discussion since our first strategic plan when I showed up here, when I got elected. It doesn't feel like a rush to me, but I honor that it feels like a rush for others. And I do recognize I'm not hearing a strong political will at this time in this table. We did add this to our strategic plan last year with 2 votes in opposition. I'm hearing more hesitancy today. And that's totally fine. That's our prerogative. So I have a couple of ideas of referral motions, but instead of just like throwing them out there, I'm wondering if I could just have a quick break to discuss with the chair and legislative services and maybe our CAO.
Can we get some nods around the table? Director Nicholson, you have something other than a nod? Go ahead.
I have a question about process. Like, presumably, we're going to have a conversation with the committee of the whole, are we not, or the board as a whole? Like, is this not just a for information kind of thing, or?
It's for direction.
For direction, okay, sorry.
Just to dovetail, and we haven't spoken about this, but I think that we want to be open and transparent and procedurally correct, and I'm open to hearing what what Director Segal has to say. Just noting the time, noting that we have a really full agenda this afternoon. I think that the pace that we've had has been pretty good. So if we can continue to build on that, that would be great. So let's take 5 or 6. We'll be back here at 12:20. Oh, yep, sorry, Director.
Yeah, sorry, no problem. I just want to voice one concern, and that is that if we put a referral motion on the floor, it's not debatable, in my understanding. So I just want to be really careful about how that is managed, Chair. Thanks.
Great point, and I think we want to make sure that we do something that is amenable to all of us. I think that makes sense. So thank you for that, Director Martman. 12. Welcome back, everyone. I'd like to have everyone in the room here for this. So just for complete understanding, transparency for those watching and on in the gallery today, we do have some time constraints, but I think that the director from Area A has sort of done a read of the pulse of the committee, and we probably have a suggested path forward that I think is prescriptive enough for us to recommend to the board, and it will generate other reports and activities, but we're trying to be clear and concise for today so that we can give direction to the board. So with that, I think for the purposes of where we go next, I have Ms. Boyd read the recommended resolution. And if we have it moved and seconded, we can have discussion and debate. There will be a number of things flow from this. We don't have to discuss them all now unless you don't want to break for lunch, but let's hear what Ms. Boyd has to say.
Thank you, Chair. That it be recommended to the board that the regional growth strategy initiation be postponed until the modernized official community plan is completed and adopted.
Director Segal.
So I guess I move that.
Is there a seconder? We have a mover and a seconder. I go to the Director Segal for comments.
Thanks. So I've been really listening intently and trying to see what our path forward could be from this discussion. So I hope I find support. Just want everyone to know this also will give us time for the staff report on the regional conservation strategy to come back to us to consider, as well as a staff report on the community issues assessment in the south. And so we'll have time to kind of wrap our brains around those two topics, which are really important to our region, I think, and also with considering if we do move forward with the RGS.
And I think I'll just add quickly to that some of the other things that have been discussed around regional issues assessment, those other items, it would be, I think, unwise to make motions to that effect now. But staff have indicated that they will bring reports back on what possible options might be. So with that, I've got Director Acton
Can you read it one more time, please, Chair?
Sure, and we're just having some initial comments at this point and hoping we can get to a question fairly soon. I'll go to Director Acton. You're red as go.
Can you read it one more time, please?
Yep, okay, hang on, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. That it be recommended to the board that the regional growth strategy initiation be postponed until the modernized official community plan is complete and adopted. This has been moved and seconded by the committee.
Thank you, Chair.
Go to Director Acton. Director Acton.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the motion, everyone. This has been a great working morning, and those are some good points of reasons to wait. And I would also add our work with economic development would actually be really important as well. When I looked at other regional growth strategies, they had local economic development plans embedded in that. And so, perhaps some of our decisions around that one. And also another area that we didn't.
Director Acton, I'm trying to keep us to the resolution that's on the floor, not general comments around the RGS
Well, I was just
future.
talking about why I support it. And for those reasons, and there's other reasons, other items that should also be thought about, but I'll keep all of those to myself for now then.
Bring them to the board. Thank you. Ms. Boyd, I think there were a couple of words left out that were important. Would you reread I'm not going to move that we amend the resolution. I'm just going to, can you read what you have now?
Yes, I did miss one word. My apologies. That it be recommended to the board that the consideration of a regional growth strategy initiation be postponed until the modernized official community plan is complete and adopted.
Thank you.
Yeah, I added the word consideration in there. So.
Director McClinton.
Thank you. Let's underline that word and circle it. I was about to amend the motion, and that word changes everything. So I can be, the reconsideration is postponed until a future date. I probably would have been a little stronger with my wording, but I am wearing a pink shirt today. I want to embody the spirit of my daughter, so I'll be in support of this motion. And I do, if I can just bear with me a comment, I just want to acknowledge our chair for hard work. Lots of conversations behind the scenes, and I appreciate your hard work. Thank you.
Director Nicholson.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. So I think the timeline's slipping today. They're requesting an extension for the MOCP because of the referral to APCs. So that's slipping till the end of December. Is that correct? Or so presumably this could get to a point where it's not adopted until early in the new year. Is that correct?
Ms. Charolf.
Thank you, Chair. So if there was a postponement of the consideration of initiation, it would be my expectation that wouldn't occur until earlier in 2026. And yes, you will receive a report later today requesting endorsement of an updated project charter to accommodate the additional engagement that was requested for the MOCP with a projected timeline to complete by the end of this year.
And did I not hear you say that there is the conservation strategy report coming forward and
Yes.
items such as that will be running concurrently with this resolution?
Yeah, there are a couple of reports, one being the regional conservation strategy, and the other being a response to a referral to staff on the South Couch and Community Needs Assessment.
Director Nicholson?
Thank you. So I appreciate Director Segal's attempt to find a compromise here, but I can't support it, I don't think. One other question I have, though, is this conservation strategy, is it possible that we could get some sort of terms of reference and better explanation about what is proposed earlier than Q4?
That doesn't pertain to the resolution, but go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. That would be that would require a resolution of the board.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess my position is that we should be getting going on some of this information collection that we need to do moving forward, whether we do a regional growth strategy or not. And I am challenged by our ability to continue to postpone things. I'm very challenged by that. It was something that I really thought when we moved into this term, that this should be a priority, that the board should have a really solid discussion about some of these challenges that our region is going to face in the next decade, 20 years, 30 years. There are going to be changes that we cannot control. And with great respect, we understand our areas as they are today. We do not understand how they're going to be 20, 30 years from now. And the challenges on the environment are going to increase incredibly. And if we don't start now to understand the risks that we're facing in a real pragmatic way, we are going to continue to make inappropriate decisions. So I cannot support this. I really think we need to get going with this regional growth strategy. Thank you.
If your comments are going to be in regards to the items that we will be doing concurrently, fair enough. I'm reluctant since we have a resolution on the floor, but please proceed, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make it clear that the regional conservation strategy is a distinct piece of work, and staff do intend to bring that forward, regardless of what happens.
Yes, and Director Nicholson has raised a question that I had in sort of the simplicity of the resolution, is that there are other components that we have discussed this morning, and staff have assured the chair and I that we will be seeing a number of those reports coming forward. I'll go to Director Martman to close.
Oh, no pressure. I guess the piece that I first of all appreciate the resolution. I think it provides a beginning, but I think there's a lot of nuances, such as Director Nicholson's bringing out, and maybe there are more nuances, probably the wrong word. Probably critical, it's probably more like it. Considerations that need to be done in the time between now and the completion of a MOCP and adoption. Public engagement also strikes me as another one before that as well. But my concern is that if we are not united here today, if we can't have a single voice coming out of this, if we don't find a way to all vote together, our lack of, well, here's the word, unanimity, will be the end of us, because we are facing a process next week that the majority will move forward. Is a possibility. It doesn't mean it will happen, but it's a possibility, and we need to be aware of that. So if I'm in this boat where I'm happy with a resolution. I think things we need to work on, but if we can't bring everybody together to say this is how we will be next week, then we are really, in my mind, potentially setting up the path that we aren't good. Most of us are not going to be happy with. So how do we get there is my question. What can we do to ensure that we are representing ourselves united in a united fashion? So, because it's going to come down to an individual director vote next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Martman. Director Acton, and please to the resolution that's on the floor. I'm trying to be somewhat contained
Well, I think
in
it
this.
is to the resolution. If somebody, specifically Director Nicholson, is hesitant because of the work that is supposed to be coming forward but isn't coming forward. So, I look to our CAO and try and understand, isn't this information that Director Nicholson is looking forward to required anyway as some of the gathering? And is this really a delay, I guess? We've been told that the MOCP is priority and the HOCP anyway, so then those are the same people doing all the work. So, I look to our CAO to unite us and to relieve some of that pressure that we're kind of picturing, that the work will take place and some work won't take place by this resolution.
So let me jump in to say that in procedure, which we all own, when a resolution is on the floor, it's ours. Staff is generally not supposed to engage at that level once the resolution is on the floor. Now, we have had a practice where if we're about to do something really bad, our staff have jumped in to help us. So I have heard from Ms. Chirolf that a number of the items that are part and parcel of what's been put forward will be proceeding concurrently while this delay is underway, this recommendation to delay is underway, and that we can expect a series of reports on a number of the items. We haven't got into specificity for a reason, because we would be here until the beginning of the next meeting discussing the specificity. So with that, Director Wilson, to the resolution to close, please.
Yeah. Ms. Boyd, I wonder if you would mind reading the resolution for me again, because I want to be absolutely clear here.
Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. Through to Director Wilson. That it be recommended to the board that the consideration of the regional growth strategy initiation be postponed until the modernized official community plan is complete and adopted.
And that's the word postponed. No, it's the
Director
postponed
Wilson.
word that I'm having trouble with, because my understanding was if we had voted, or if the resolution had been to oppose, that's not the right word, but to not go ahead with the regional growth strategy at this board, it would die here. It would not go to the board.
No, that's not the case. We have been referred this for direction. We can provide direction, but it's going back to the committee or
Either
the board.
way, so the word
Yeah.
postponed or no, we don't want this is both the same thing.
They are getting I'm not anticipating the outcome of the resolution, but we are giving direction as requested to the board of the Electoral Area Services Committee.
Okay, thank you. And just as a final, I will be supporting this, and I hope going forward that the word unanimity comes up again, so that we're not wasting our time here for the last 3 hours talking about what we've just been talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wilson. Everyone is clear on the resolution. Director Martman, yes? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? We have one opposed. The motion carries. Ms. Boyd, I think that takes us to question period. Could you please read the instructions around question period?
Thank you, Chair. For question period, The question period is an opportunity to offer the public to ask a question regarding the business of the CVRD. The question period allows for an allotment of 15 minutes and is comprised of 2 parts. The first is reserved for questions directly related to agenda items. If there is time remaining, questions may be on the matter of public interest related to and in the CVRD jurisdiction. Each questioner is permitted to ask 1 question plus 1 follow-up question related to the answer. The question must truly be a question and not a statement of opinion or speech. Questioners must avoid personal references, insinuations, violent, offensive, or disrespectful remarks about another person, and unparliamentary language.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Chair Morrison, I'm very glad to ask you, in particular, this question. Can you describe what it's like to be sandwiched between the Regional District of Nanaimo and the Capital Regional District of Victoria, both now and in the next 10, 20, 30 years? And if, in principle, a regional growth strategy could help preserve the CVRD as it is today?
Great question. I feel no pressure being in between 2 government areas and jurisdictions that have regional growth strategies, because the networking and engagement that we do with our colleagues north and south, helps us to understand the good, the bad, and the ugly around regional growth strategies or not. We've, as boards and previous boards, have made some decisions that weren't great, but we've also made some decisions that are fantastic. In the absence of a regional growth strategy, we are mandated to be open-minded to the idea. I think that you've heard you've heard a full discussion amongst the committee here today about the good, the bad, and the ugly, the warts and all. And I think that the benefits will be realized when all of the voices, not only the voices here, but the voices in our communities, our APCs, our community have changed so dramatically that it's important for us to get the pulse of the community on something as important as this.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to pose a question to the chair? Welcome.
Good afternoon. Mr. Chair, at the beginning of every meeting at public input, you read the policy statement and the expectations. Today, I believe we heard from a person addressing the directors that was less than charitable towards our staff, and yet he was not interrupted, and I was wondering why not.
That was clearly a decision of mine not to engage, and part of this role here is to not only listen and watch what's going on at the lectern, but also to listen and watch and observe my colleagues around the table. And I did note that there was a line approached, maybe even touched. I don't know if it was crossed. And I think that when there are members of the public that have regular engagement with not only us but our staff and have had less than satisfactory results or engagements, that provided they're not being hurtful, slanderous, and are expressing an opinion of their engagement, then I would be hard pressed. The individual in question was very close. I noted the looks on a couple of my colleagues' faces, and this is a very challenging ruling and decision to make. And on this one, I think it was. I think I made the right one.
I would hope that you would also consider the faces of your staff at that point. From this side of the podium, it didn't seem appropriate.
Thank you for that.
On the regional growth strategy, one of the things that I would ask you to consider is we've moved from an area of individual OCPs to a regional thinking within the CVRD district and moving into the MOCP. And we're getting there. It's taken a long time. But have you considered the downstream effects of what happens in our individual electoral areas and how they affect the neighboring electoral areas, and then by extension of that, how the growth, our growth and growth of our member municipalities have downstream effects on us. And you only have to drive down the highway or down the rural roads, and they're far over capacity. Is the regional growth strategy not a way to have a voice and have input into where that growth happens and to facilitate, for the better of the community, all the infrastructure that goes along with it?
Great question, and I know that based on just based on my reading of the volumes of materials and the interactions that I've had with community members, those are all questions that all of us are considering. And I'll raise an item that is, I think, beginning to happen and is prevalent and in one local nation that I won't name, but there's new lands that are being brought to or that are being returned to communities, to First Nations communities that are currently in a fee simple position that are subject to CVRD rules and regulations, municipal rules and regulations, land use planning. And this particular community is simply, they've got a great desire to grow and expand and make use of these new lands, but have chosen the option to addition to reserve and waiting, even though there's a sincere desire to develop on these lands. And this is a bit of a reflection of the ability for them to have their aspirations met and to provide housing for their communities. And it's just the regime that we're in today. And when a community will delay a decision of 3 to 5 years until their lands can be added to reserve so that they can have an expedited, more consolidated and I'm looking for the word is certainty in their development process, because they anticipate a development process within the CVRD will take them just about as long. That's a challenge. So I listen to input like that in the consideration of what happens with my neighbor. I know that Director Nicholson has been very clear about the capacity of her area to incorporate new growth, and I think that she's won the respect of her colleagues around the table when new growth comes forward in her area. So yes, we're considering that on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to pose a question to the chair? Welcome.
Hello. Pauline Hunt again, Area H. You said that we have to get the pulse of our public before we can move ahead on this. And how might that happen? How might the public be involved in future?
Great question, and that's something that staff have indicated that we'll be bringing forward a plan for engagement, and we don't know the extent and the costs or anything at this point, but you heard from the directors around the table that preliminary issues and the likes are something that we'd like to hear from our communities on.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor? We're done. See you in 41 minutes.